Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 1045, Chapter. Beneath a sky that stretched like an endless scroll of pale blue silk, Ling Han stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze calm yet distant, as though measuring the unseen tides of fate. His decision had already been made. They would return, only after Shui Yanyu had crossed the perilous threshold of her heavenly tribulation. The seas had long since grown restless under their shadow. Pirate ships that once prowled with arrogance now moved with caution, their sails heavy with fear. The relentless guerrilla strikes of Ling Han had carved terror into their hearts. No longer did they roam unguarded. Now, each vessel bore at least one Sun-Moon tier elite, a silent warning that the game had changed. Ling Han was fearless, but not reckless. The gulf between the Mountain River tier and the Sun-Moon tier was like the difference between a flickering candle and a blazing sun. One misstep, and even a genius would fall into oblivion. Even with the mysterious Black Tower and the swift cloud-piercing shuttle at his disposal, he knew these were not shields against absolute power. Fortune had once smiled upon him, like the moment Shi Cheng's strike pierced the absolute beginning stone. But such miracles were not things one could summon at will. He could not gamble with death. And Shui Yanyu, she was not him. She did not possess that monstrous physique, forged through countless trials and tempered like divine steel. Thus, when the heavens descended upon her, they showed no mercy. Lightning tore through the sky like celestial dragons, roaring with fury as they struck her again and again. By the time the tribulation subsided, Shui Yanyu stood amidst the fading thunder, her figure trembling, her clothes scorched, her skin marked by burns and ash. She appeared utterly dishevelled, like a beauty fallen from the heavens into ruin. Yet even so, she had endured. And that, in itself, was a miracle. Ling Han had secretly aided her with the absolute beginning stone, shielding her from the most devastating strikes. Without it, the outcome would have been far more tragic. But the heavens always demanded a price. What she gained, however, far surpassed what she suffered. Upon stepping into the medium extreme of the Mountain River tier, her lifespan extended to an astonishing 200,000 years. Time itself seemed to bow before her. For the next 50 to 60,000 years, her appearance would remain frozen at the prime of youth, radiant, flawless, untouched by age. For a woman of her beauty, this was a treasure beyond measure, even more so than strength. Ling Han observed her expression, the faint joy that lingered in her eyes, and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Men and women truly saw the world through different lenses. Out of curiosity, he turned his gaze toward a reflective surface nearby and examined his own appearance. What stared back at him was a face far too young, no more than 20, perhaps even younger. In his previous life, he had lived over 2 centuries. Though not yet old, he had carried the aura of a mature man in his mid-20s, steady, composed, seasoned. But now, sigh, he muttered, shaking his head. I look too much like a youth. His cultivation speed in this life had been nothing short of monstrous. His body had not been given time to mature alongside his soul. Before he could dwell further on it, Shui Yanyu cast him a sideways glance, her lips curling slightly. What? Are you dissatisfied because I'm too old? Ling Han blinked, then chuckled softly, stepping closer. How could you be old, wife? Your skin is as soft as jade, as delicate as silk. Even if I looked at you 100 times a day, it still wouldn't be enough. His words flowed more smoothly now, though whether they were sincere or practiced was another matter entirely. But Ling Han's true skill lay elsewhere. Before Shui Yanyu could react, he leaned forward and captured her lips, his movements bold and unrestrained. His kiss was deep and relentless, leaving her breath unsteady, her eyes clouded, her body softening in his arms. Damn pervert, she snapped, pushing him away, her cheeks flushed crimson. It's fine if you kiss me, but why are you sucking on my saliva? That's disgusting. And your hands, she added furiously. Why are you grabbing my chest? Oh, Ling Han responded calmly, as if enlightened by her words. His hands obediently moved downward, only to settle firmly on her shapely hips. Shui Yanyu nearly lost her mind. Is he doing this on purpose? Damn pervert, she declared again, stamping the label upon him with absolute certainty. Ling Han, however, looked utterly aggrieved. What an unfair accusation. When I kiss you, my hands have to go somewhere, right? Naturally, they go to where I like the most. He gestured shamelessly. This is my favourite. His finger pointed toward her chest. And this is my second favourite. He motioned toward her hips. Xu Yanyu's face burned even brighter, yet beneath the embarrassment a flicker of pride quietly bloomed. She was, after all, quite satisfied with those particular assets. It was just unfortunate that they were being appreciated by this shameless man. Thus, amidst playful bickering and quiet laughter, the two began their journey back toward the imperial capital. They did not rush. Along the way, Ling Han spent each day refining heavenly pearl pills in large quantities. These pills would serve as his stepping stone. Once sold, the profit would be used to acquire materials for a higher ambition, a level 3 divine pill, the Jade Heaven pill. The higher the grade of a pill, the more time and effort required for its refinement, but the rewards were equally grand, yet such heights were not easily reached. Most alchemists lived their entire lives only able to refine level 1 or level 2 divine pills. Their talents were limited, their understanding shallow. Thus, the market was flooded with lower-grade pills, driving their prices down. But starting from level 3, everything changed. Each pill became a treasure, each cauldron a fortune. For now, Ling Han merely smiled wryly. He was still earning his school fees. Half a month later, the towering walls of the imperial capital rose before them, grand and imposing like an ancient beast guarding its domain. Using their identity tokens from the Scarlet Heaven Academy, they passed through the gates without obstruction. Shui Yanyu returned to the Shui clan first. Though she had already advanced, she still needed to formally report her breakthrough and transfer to the Medium Extreme Division. Ling Han, meanwhile, returned to the academy alone. He intended to keep a low profile, but fate had other plans. His name had already spread like wildfire, not only within the academy but across the entire capital. The very next day, visitors flooded his residence. Among them was the delicate and noble Li Weiwei, as well as his friends Lin Yu and Ma Xing. There were also countless challengers, eager to make a name for themselves by defeating him. Ling Han merely smiled. Challenge me? Of course. But there's a fee, 8,000 to 9,000 true origin stones. Outrage erupted instantly. Wasn't it only 10 stones before? What kind of nonsense is this? Ling Han shrugged leisurely. That was before I became famous. Naturally, my appearance fee was lower. Now, if I weren't worth it, you wouldn't be lining up here. His gaze turned sharp. If you can't afford it, leave. Don't waste my time, otherwise prepare 10,000 stones and queue up. He then turned toward the Asura Demon Emperor. Little Asura, record their names. Woof! Trapped within the body of a puppet wolf, the once mighty Demon Emperor responded obediently. Dignity? Could it fill one's stomach? The challengers burned with anger. Some even attempted to force their way through, but they were swiftly suppressed by the Asura Demon Emperor, whose battle prowess stood at the consummate level's late stage. Few students could match him. At that moment, a sharp voice rang out. Stupid blockhead! You've been gone for so many days. Did you forget your master? Li Weiwei stood with her arms crossed, trying her best to puff out her chest. Unfortunately, the results were less than impressive. Ling Han burst into laughter. Congratulations on reaching the mountain river tier. Li Weiwei's face lit up instantly. That's right. I've refined all the mountain river stones and reached the middle stage of the low extreme. But her expression soon dimmed. It's just, I still haven't grasped the true essence of the mountain river tier. Ling Han nodded gently. Don't worry, you still have time before reaching the peak. Understanding will come naturally. Now that you've stepped into the tier, it'll be easier to revisit your insights. Li Weiwei narrowed her eyes. So you're saying I'm stupid? Ling Han was rendered speechless. If she insisted on twisting his words, there was nothing he could do. And unlike Shui Yanyu, he had no intention of indulging her. Their relationship would remain at a distance. Just then, Li Weiwei's expression turned serious. I have bad news. Ling Han's gaze sharpened. Zhao Lun has broken through to the Sun Moon tier. Ling Han's brows furrowed slightly. So fast. Even for a prodigy, advancing a major tier should take decades. This was abnormal. Li Weiwei clicked her tongue. I heard from father. Great General Zhao entered an ancient ruin and risked his life to obtain a supreme divine pill. He was severely injured in the process. Even the Empress herself was alarmed. Ling Han fell silent, stroking his chin thoughtfully. A storm was gathering, and this news was far from good. The affairs weighing on Ling Han's mind were like tangled threads, but he cast them aside for the moment, his gaze sharpening with purpose. There was a more urgent matter before him, one that could not be delayed, one that would decide whether his path of cultivation would surge forward or grind to a halt. Money, or rather, the means to create it. Within his possession lay an astonishing hoard of heavenly pearl pills, each one a treasure coveted by cultivators. Yet, in this world, even treasures required the right hands to bring forth their full value. If he were to sell them himself, without backing or influence, he would be like a lamb walking into a den of wolves, cheated, underpaid, and dismissed. But Ling Han was not without foresight. He turned, almost without hesitation, to a name that carried both authority and audacity. Li Weiwei. With her standing as the daughter of the left minister, no merchant would dare play tricks. Even if he had to part with a share of the profits, the final gain would far exceed anything he could obtain alone. And as expected, when Li Weiwei heard of the plan, her eyes sparkled with delight. The taste of wealth had already ignited something within her, and she seized the opportunity without the slightest hesitation. Yet when Ling Han revealed the sheer number of heavenly pearl pills, she froze. Her eyes widened, her expression shifting from delight to disbelief as she stared at the overwhelming stockpile before her. What did you do?" she exclaimed, her voice rising. "Did you rob an entire alchemy clan?" There were simply too many, so many that even a large-scale pharmacy might not possess even a fraction of this quantity. Ling Han merely chuckled, calm as ever, as though such a fortune was nothing more than a passing trifle. "I'll take 80%, he said lightly. "You take 20. Fair?" Li Weiwei did not even hesitate. She nodded with a bright smile, her heart already calculating the massive gains to come. She was merely acting as an intermediary. Yet even a fifth of this transaction would be an unimaginable fortune. Compared to mundane trade, alchemical pills were treasures that commanded astronomical prices. Thus the deal was struck. Meanwhile, Ling Han took time to meet Lin Yu, Ma Xing, and the others once more. They still remained within the Shattering Void tier division, each one steadfast in their determination. None of them were willing to break into the immortal realm prematurely. They all sought to reach the pinnacle of their current realm, to push their battle prowess to the legendary threshold of 20 stars before ascending. Yet, standing before Ling Han, they could not help but feel a bitter ache. They had entered the Scarlet Heaven Academy together. And yet now, they had barely progressed, while Ling Han had already stepped into the middle extreme of the Mountain River tier. The gap between them was no longer a distance, it was a chasm, a gulf so vast it felt insurmountable. While they wrestled with their frustration, Li Weiwei had already thrown herself into her task with astonishing efficiency. For the sake of wealth, this young mistress revealed a side of herself few had ever seen. In merely 3 days, 3 short days. She returned with a staggering sum, 3 million true origin stones. Even after dividing the profits according to their agreement, Ling Han still received more than 2 million, a fortune. Yet to Ling Han this wealth was not meant to be hoarded. It was fuel. He retained only a small portion for his cultivation and for maintaining his puppets. The rest he poured entirely into acquiring materials. His goal was clear. To refine the Jade Heaven pill, a level 3 divine pill. For an ordinary cultivator at the medium extreme of Mountain River tier, this task would border on madness. The strain alone would break most alchemists. But Ling Han was no ordinary cultivator. Within him resided the Black Tower, a divine treasure that eliminated concerns of flame instability. His divine sense was vast and resilient, far surpassing others of his level. He possessed the foundation. The only thing he lacked was success, and so he began. At first, failure greeted him without mercy. Batch after batch collapsed into ruin. Materials worth fortunes turned to waste in an instant. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into a month. Within just over a month, more than 90% of the materials worth over 2 million true origin stones, had been consumed, burned away like drifting ash. Yet amidst the countless failures, a flicker appeared, a faint outline, a trace of understanding. Ling Han's eyes sharpened. He had glimpsed it. The path. "Well," he muttered wryly, "perhaps after a few hundred or 1,000 more failures I'll succeed." Even he could not help but feel a twinge of pain as he watched his wealth vanish like smoke. 2 million was not enough, not nearly enough. To walk this path, he would need another fortune of equal scale. Scratching his head, Ling Han sighed. I'm broke. Just days ago he had been a man of wealth, now a pauper. His thoughts turned, half in jest, half in seriousness. Was there another fool out there, waiting to be persuaded to part with their riches? Elsewhere, beneath the shimmering reflection of a tranquil lake, a different storm brewed. Zhao Lun stood silently, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed upon the rippling waters. The surface danced like countless golden serpents under the sun, and his fingers moved subtly, mimicking the rhythm. He was cultivating a profound ancient technique that required him to observe the flow of water, to grasp the hidden rhythm of heaven and earth. Before him knelt a woman of exceptional beauty, her appearance strikingly similar to Shui Yanyu, her name, Yang Luodan. Yet though she shared that captivating grace, there remained a subtle difference, a missing essence that set her apart. What is it? Zhao Lun asked calmly, his voice steady as though the past held no weight upon him. But when Yang Luodan spoke, Ling Han and Miss Shui have returned. The calm shattered. Zhao Lun's expression twisted violently, his fist clenching as fury surged through him. Defeat. His defeat at Ling Han's hands, even under suppressed cultivation, remained the greatest humiliation of his life. And worse, Ling Han now walked beside Shui Yanyu, the woman Zhao Lun regarded as untouchable. His reverse scale. They failed, he muttered, his voice turning cold. Zuoshao, Fan Yong, 2 peak high-extreme cultivators, each with battle prowess exceeding 2 or 3 stars, each armed with treasures. And yet they had not returned. Zhao Lun's gaze darkened. Trash, he spat. They couldn't even handle something so trivial. In his mind, the conclusion was clear. They had been killed, and yet he could not comprehend it. How could they fail? Was it truly as the rumors said, that Ling Han, this ant from a small world, had received the favor of heaven itself? That he was untouchable? Zhao Lun's voice turned icy. Must I act personally? Behind him, a faint red sun manifested, a symbol of his power, a qualitative leap beyond the mountain river Tyr, yet even he hesitated. Ling Han was now under the protection of the 9th King. To move openly was to invite disaster. Even his father, the great general, would not dare provoke the 9th King lightly. At that moment, Yang Luodan spoke softly. Young master, perhaps we can employ the Dark Night Hall. The moment those words left her lips, Zhao Lun's expression froze. Then, how dare you? His voice thundered with fury. The Dark Night Hall, enemies of the 3 great majestic empires, to associate with them was to court death. If discovered, even Zhao Lun would not escape judgment. Yang Luodan immediately lowered herself, trembling. Please calm your anger, young master. Yet as she knelt, her posture revealed the curve of her form, her figure accentuated in a way that stirred something within Zhao Lun. His breath slowed, his gaze shifted. Until now, he had restrained himself. His father forbidding indulgence until he reached the Sun Moon Tier, but that restraint had begun to crumble, especially under the provocation of Ling Han's name. Without warning, he lunged. Clothing tore. Yang Luodan gasped, shock in her voice, but deep within her eyes there was a trace of satisfaction. This was what she wanted. She did not wish to remain a mere follower. She sought more, to rise, to become the mistress of the general's residence. As Zhao Lun lost himself in desire, Yang Luodan wrapped her arms around him, her lips curving faintly. The first step was complete, and even in that moment she did not forget her ambition. Young master, she whispered between breaths, what of my suggestion? We can conceal our identities. The Dark Night Hall only recognizes money. Zhao Lun, his mind clouded, nodded. You'll handle it. Thus, a shadowy scheme began to take shape. Back within the solitude of his cultivation, Ling Han stood amidst the remnants of countless failures. The materials were gone, all of them. And yet, he still had not succeeded. With no funds remaining, he could only return to a familiar method, refine more heavenly pearl pills, sell them, earn more, then return to alchemy, a cycle of fire and wealth. Time flowed like a river. 5 months passed in the blink of an eye. For ordinary people, such a span might bring great change. For cultivators, it was but a fleeting moment. Yet for Ling Han, 5 months was enough to overturn everything. At last, within the crucible of countless failures, a breakthrough emerged. The Jadam pill was finally refined. And with it, Ling Han stepped forward, breaking through the barrier, advancing into the late stage of the medium extreme. A new realm, a new height, and the legend of his rise continued.